So you're thinking about visiting Barcelona, but you've heard all the scary stories and clickbait headlines. You will get robbed. Locals hate tourists. They don't even speak Spanish there. Sound familiar? It's time we talk about all that. Here's the thing. Most of what you've been told is either outdated, exaggerated, or just plain wrong. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the 5 biggest lies that people keep spreading about Barcelona so that you can know the truth. That way, while you're planning your trip, you'll have a better idea of the full picture, and you can experience the city like a local and not just a nervous tourist. So let's bust some myths, starting with the most infamous one of all. You will 100% get robbed in Barcelona. Yes, pickpocketing can happen, especially in busy tourist areas and crowded public spaces. But the idea that everyone gets robbed is a huge exaggeration. In 2024, crime as a whole fell by 4.7%. And thefts specifically dropped by 6.3%. The total number of thefts reported was 94,517. Now I know, that number by itself sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that 15.5 million tourists spent the night in Barcelona that year. When you do the math, the odds of you personally getting robbed are actually quite low. And when it comes to violent crimes, thefts where force or intimidation are used, those dropped by 8.4%. And I also know what you're thinking. Those are just the reported numbers. Fair point. But you're also not taking into account the 1.7 million Barcelona residents or the over 1 million cruise ship passengers passing through the city without staying overnight. Needless to say, all the Barcelona metropolitan area residents that come into the city every single day. While pickpocketing is a problem, the good news is that crime has been going down thanks to more police presence and patrols. So yes, pickpocketing can happen, but not everyone that visits gets robbed. And fortunately, there's a lot that you can do to stay out of trouble. Here are some basic precautions that you can follow. Be extra cautious in crowded areas like the metro or around popular tourist sites like Sagrada Familia and Las Ramblas. Never leave your phone, bag, or belongings unattended on tables, chairs, or anywhere easy to grab. Keep valuables in harder to reach places like the front pockets, not the back. And never use those easy to swipe cargo pockets. Skip the flashy jewelry, expensive watches, or showy necklaces that might attract attention. And while you can't guarantee that it won't happen to you, following these precautions greatly reduces your risk. And unlike most big cities, yes, it does happen. But most visits are completely trouble-free. Something you might have heard is that Barcelona or Catalonia isn't a part of Spain. A lot of this comes from a strong Catalan identity and more recently, an independence movement that really peaked between 2017 and 2019, especially when they held a referendum for Catalan independence on October 1st, 2017. But according to the latest numbers from the Center for Opinion Studies, just under 38% of Catalans say they would vote yes in an independence referendum today, while 54% would vote no. And among young people, the number identifying exclusively as Catalan, not Spanish, has dropped to 36%, a 20% decrease over the past 10 years. It's worth noting that across Spain, it's common for people to identify with their region before their country. And honestly, it's one of the best things about Spain, all the regional variety that you'll find throughout the country. In just a few hours, you can land in a completely different space with different foods, languages, traditions, and even different words for the same thing. Spain today is divided into 17 autonomous regions and 2 autonomous cities. Yes, Catalonia has its own language, police force, and parliament, but legally and geographically, it's still part of Spain. Historically, Spain is a collection of different kingdoms that have unified over time, although internationally it's more often associated with the Old Kingdom of Castile. Something I once heard a while back, and I really wish I could remember where I heard this, is that Catalonia, or Barcelona, is Spanish, but it's not Castilian. And that's something to keep in mind when you visit. Catalonia is a part of Spain, but it's an area of the country with strong pride and a unique local identity. If you respect that and take the time to understand those differences, you'll have a much richer and a much better experience here. And speaking of Catalan identity, one of the biggest ways that it shows up is through language, which brings us to one of the biggest myths that visitors hear. Locals won't speak to you in Spanish. And if you're wondering why people even believe that, that's because in Barcelona there are actually 2 different official languages, Catalan and Castilian, what we usually refer to as Spanish. It always surprises me when people assume that locals won't use Spanish, especially because many visitors don't even realize that Catalan exists when they first arrive. I know I didn't realize how important it was when I first moved here, but here's the reality. Anyone that grows up here will speak both Catalan and Spanish. In my personal experience, locals will easily switch to Spanish for non-Catalan speakers, and sometimes even annoyingly, go directly to English if they sense you're a tourist. And yes, there are people, and I have many friends, whose primary language is Catalan. But the latest 2023 study showed that only 29% of people speak Catalan as their sole main language, which is roughly 3 out of every 10 residents. What's really interesting is that same study looked at the difference between understanding, speaking, reading, and writing Catalan. The numbers are extremely high across the board for those born in Catalonia, but they drop substantially for Spanish-born residents, especially when it comes to writing. For foreign-born residents, as you'd expect, the numbers were even lower, except in the writing category, where they actually scored higher than Spanish-born nationals. The study shows that overall, 32.6% of people in Barcelona speak Catalan habitually, while for Spanish, those numbers are at 46.5%. Both numbers have dropped slightly compared to those previous studies. But with 1 out of 3 residents in Barcelona today being foreign-born, the level of English around the city has visibly risen. Another 2024 study found that out of Barcelona's 10 districts, Gracia is the only one where Catalan is the most widely used language. So if you're visiting, you might encounter somebody who prefers to speak Catalan, but I've never met anybody who has outright refused to switch to Spanish. In fact, the thing that I hear people complain most about is that the locals switch to English too quickly. The good news is, knowing even a few Catalan phrases can go a long way. And locals really appreciate it when visitors make the effort. So here are just a few swaps that you can make to get you started. Hola, conveniently, is the same in both of the languages. But if you want to take it to that next level, you can swap out buenos dias for bon dia. Swap out buenas tardes for bona tarda. And you can always go with adeu instead of adios. These little attempts go a long way in connecting with locals and showing an appreciation for their culture. The Arena shopping mall in Plaza España always draws a lot of attention. If you've seen it, you've probably asked yourself, what was this building originally? Well, since 2011, it's been a shopping mall, but it used to be a bull ring. In fact, one of 3 different bull rings in the entire city. Now, you might have heard that bullfighting in Barcelona is illegal, but that's not completely true. Here's what is. The last bullfight in Barcelona was held on September 25th, 2011, after the Catalan parliament voted to outlaw bullfighting across the region. That law went into effect on January 1st, 2012, and since then, no bullfights have taken place in Catalonia. I was actually at one of the last bullfights in the Monumental Arena, and back then, support for bullfighting was pretty low. And today, I doubt that many locals would back seeing it return. But in 2016, something happened. Spain's Constitutional Court overturned Catalonia's ban on bullfighting, ruling that it was considered part of Spain's national and cultural heritage. And therefore, it wasn't a decision that the Catalan government could make. That being said, the ruling still allowed for Catalonia to decide how bullfighting would be handled at the local level. So while it's true that no bullfights have been held in the city since 2011, technically, they're not illegal. So if you're visiting Barcelona and hoping to catch a bullfight, you're out of luck. Your best bet would be getting over to Las Ventas in Madrid or another region like Andalusia where bullfighting is still actively practiced. In the summer of 2024, viral headlines were made when a group of protesters marched against mass tourism, spraying tourists with water guns along Las Ramblas and La Barceloneta. While protests like these weren't exclusive to Barcelona, they shined a big spotlight on the city's complicated relationship with tourism and how it affects local life. When visitors arrive, they often see graffiti or signs saying, "Tourists go home," hear news about anti-tourism protests, and get the impression they're not welcome here. But I don't believe that to be the case. Studies show that about 60% of Barcelona residents still believe tourism is beneficial to the city. Yes, that's a drop from 70% in 2023, but it's still a clear majority. What's important to understand is this. The citizens' complaints are not with the tourists themselves. It's with over-tourism. Barcelona is a city of 1.7 million residents that hosted 15.5 million tourists in 2024. And each year since 2020 has basically set a new record, leaving many locals asking, do we really need even more visitors? Those same studies show that 24% of residents think the city still needs to attract more tourists, and that's down from 36% in 2023. And 74% of locals now say that Barcelona has reached its limit when it comes to visitor numbers. The biggest local complaints? mass tourism and rising housing costs linked to short-term rentals and the tourism sector. But here's the key point. Attacking tourists is never the answer. And while there are all of those dramatic news headlines, that's not something that regularly happens here. Everyone that I know has come in and had a great time and felt extremely welcomed by all of the locals. So remember, locals don't hate you. What they're asking for is more regulation on mass tourism and how it affects daily life. So don't worry about being hated or attacked in the streets. Just treat everyone with respect, understand the impact that you have when you travel, and everyone, locals and visitors alike, will have a better experience. So those are the 5 big lies that people keep hearing about Barcelona. But here's the thing. Once you know the truth about the myths, what you really need are the essential tips to make sure that you're planning your trip the right way. Things like when to come, what to see, and how to get around the city without wasting time or money. So what you should do is watch this video next where I've broken down the 10 things that you need to know about Barcelona before coming, which is packed with all the information that I wish that I knew before I got here.